Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea, sit back, and let's chat about the astrology for the day. Good morning, April. Good morning, Alex. Good to see the both of you this morning. And I see others of you out there. I can't tell because they're little teeny weeny pictures of you. Alex, my other house is Gulf Breeze. Oh, so April, how are things in your neck of the world? Um, Alex says, I'll join if I can. I'm in the Florida Panhandle watching Michael. And as you all know, our friend in the morning here, Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel, is a resident of Panama City or thereabouts, another little town just right there by it. And I woke up this morning to the news that Michael was now a category 4 and she had planned on staying. And thankfully, I can report that she is on the road to Jacksonville, Florida now, which Jacksonville should be out of the way of the hurricane altogether. So thank you. And let's just continue to bless her trip across the state as she is making her way out of the danger zone. And I hope the rest of you are safe wherever you are and that Michael can just blow through and not cause as much damage as we think he might be able to do. Miracles can happen, right? Miracles happen. Good morning, Elle. Good morning, Asa. Good morning. Good morning, Suzanne. Everybody, thank you for joining us. April says, good morning, Mimi. Sending Reiki, light, and safety to all. You know, it's interesting how when we look at the astrology of the day today, I can now see why it is that Michael intensified instead of petered out. And that's because we have a lot of energy moving into the sign of Scorpio, which is a water sign. Hurricanes name, mostly water and air. And April says she is somewhere near Jacksonville. Look like I missed there we go. I'm south of Jacksonville in St. Augustine. They'll get rain. Well, rain is a heck of a lot better than what the storm surge is. And Debbie lived close enough to the water that I was really scared for her. So when I woke up and I texted her and she said she was on the road, I'm like, oh, I'm so relieved, right? I'm so relieved that she will be out of that danger zone. Now let's just hope the traffic and everything allows her to get to where she needs to go. And I asked her to text me no matter what time it was as soon as she arrived in Jacksonville. So I hope to hear from her soon. But we have a lot of energy headed into water today as yesterday, late in the day, Mercury moved into Scorpio, joining Venus in retrograde in Scorpio and Jupiter in Scorpio. And of course, it isn't just, the sign of Scorpio. It sends energy all around the chart. And we have Neptune also in Pisces, water. And Chiron has retrograded backwards now into Pisces, water. So we have a lot of water energy on the planet, and that's partly, what we're seeing here. And the secondary focus of energy is in air. So air and water spells hurricane. And let's just hope that there's little damage done as, this one does seem to be moving rather quickly. Let's hope it just goes. Let's just see it going. So today, mostly what I want to talk about is the astrology of these next few weeks as it relates to Mercury, the messenger planet. As both, well, let's see, also the moon. I meant to tell you that the moon is also in Scorpio. So we have Mercury, moon, Venus, Jupiter, all in Scorpio, water, deep water, and Neptune in Pisces at 14 degrees and Chiron in Pisces at 29 degrees. So we're dealing with a lot of water, right? Water everywhere. And if I did a chart, perhaps of Panama City, which is where it looks like the eye is headed, or let's see, I don't even know what other cities there. Apalachicola seem to be in the vicinity. We might be able to see why it is that the eye of that hurricane is headed right at them. But I didn't have time to do that this morning before I got on air. But let's look at some of the contacts that these planets are making, because it isn't just, of course, the fact that they've moved into water. They send off the impulses of energy all around a chart. And today we have the moon in Scorpio conjunct Mercury and also conjuncting Venus in retrograde. So right away a conjunction with the moon. The moon catalyzes action often, or it is the rhythm in which things happen. So when the moon passes by a planet, it often triggers an event or an incident or something to do with the planet that it is connecting with. And it connected to Mercury, or actually, let's say the moon passed Mercury, but Mercury is still lingering right at the moon. So there are messages, there are words coming up around the description of these events that are happening. And then the moon will then run smack into Venus retrograde and take us into looking at our values, right? It's at the gate of values right now, the values of the nation, our personal values, and are we living in alignment with those values, in accordance with those values? And then today is also the day that Mars and Venus perfect the square that they've been in the process of building over the last couple of weeks. And when I say perfect, it's a word, kind of an interesting word, don't you think? Perfect. That means they come into the actual conjunction or alignment of the aspect. So in this case, they're coming into the exact square between them today. So we have conflicting sort of feelings and emotions and conflicting actions. And that in and of itself has been explosive in our experience of what's gone on in this nation over the last couple of weeks. And now it's in an exact, and then it can, sort of fade away and hopefully change some of that energy. I think perhaps the most dangerous in all of this is that Mercury and Venus are in an opposition to Uranus at 2 degrees or so of Taurus, actually 1 degree of Taurus, and Taurus being the opposing sign to Scorpio. So Uranus is a planet of surprises, of awakening, of ahas, shock. Remember, Earth this week is also sitting at the gate of shock. So it is probably the one day this week where, and maybe even into tomorrow, where the most shock of the energies changing or of things that are happening in the world will really beam into us. So what do we do with all of this, right? What does Mercury in opposition to Uranus bring us? What does Mercury in a close conjunction to Venus bring us? Well, I think what we have to look at is what does Mercury in Scorpio bring us, right? Because it's moved right into a new sign. And it does this frequently. So this isn't like new energy. Some of the things we've been talking about are, new and are things that haven't happened in a very long time, like Venus turning retrograde, or the energies of Uranus as it was conjuncting Eris and things like that over the last few months. But now this is something that happens on a regular basis. So what does it bring us? Well, Mercury is the messenger planet. It rules everything to do with communication. It rules everything to do with our minds. And in the mundane world, it rules transportation, trains, planes, automobiles, delivery systems. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there was apparently a huge natural gas pipeline explosion in British Columbia yesterday or this morning, I'm not sure which. And my electric company here in Puget Sound, where I live, and probably where a lot of you who are listening, you've probably received messages this morning in your email asking you to reduce your natural gas usage because the delivery system blew up. Right. So they have to turn it off to be able to do some repairs. And if it just so happens to coincide with cooler weather here. So if you are heating your home by natural gas, you may have to turn your thermostat down and reduce the amount of gas. So Mercury into Scorpio asks us to look at all of these deeper things, right? And think about this. Natural gas as a product is ruled by Pluto, which is also a ruling planet of the sign of Scorpio. So it's like life imitating art, right? Or art imitating life, or really as above, so below. That's the real energy here, is that we're seeing the energy of these planets and their transits being echoed down here on the face of the planet. And these things are coming to us this week as shocks. I'm sure the people that live in and around British Columbia were kind of shocked. I'm sure the people along the Gulf Coast of the United States are going to be a bit shocked no matter what happens. The damage done by a hurricane is pretty shocking. So it's always interesting to see, what happens um, in this kind of energy. And, the shock to me sometimes seems senseless. I mean, if you look at a hurricane, it seems senseless, but there's something bigger going on here, because a hurricane is literally just the outpicturing of the crazy swirling energy that's going on within each of us, that's going on within the collective of humanity, which is also affecting the earth and the solar system and beyond, right? The energy, these are impulse waves that come to us from places beyond our knowing, and then begin to really be seen in terms of what's going on. So if you've been in chaos in your own life or in your own inner world, then it shouldn't surprise you to see that inner chaos exemplified in the outer world. I'm not saying that you created the hurricane. Don't go there. Don't go there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that as above, so below, and as within, so without. It's like we often say to people when they're, wanting to create something in their lives, or they want change in their lives, they have to look and see what's going on in their outer world, because that will tell you what's going on in your inner world. Right? Sometimes people don't understand why things are happening to them. And all you really have to do is see what's going on in your outer world to really understand, wow, how something got created on the inner planes, right? So this is funny because when things happen, like during a Mercury retrograde, which, bless our souls, we have another one coming very soon. When Mercury retrograde is occurring and we have things like our washing machines blow up, our cars take a dive, one after another, it seems like, things happen to our devices or to our world. It's that, okay, what does that represent? If it's affecting you personally, what does it represent in your life? Right? If it's your radiator that blows, where are you holding on to too much steam, right? Where are you boiling over, if you will, and breaking down through the water system in your body? I mean, we could go on and on with the analogies of what that outer world is really showing us about what's going on within. And that's the way we can use this energy, right, from now on. And Mercury is a messenger planet. So it delivers the message before the sun gets there, usually, right? So Mercury precedes the sun in most cases, except a little bit of time around the retrograde. And when it precedes the sun, it starts to deliver the messages of what our focus will be on over the next couple of weeks. And I always think of it as, a plow that goes through a field and tears up the soil, it prepares it for planting of the new seeds. That's exactly what Mercury kind of does. It moves through a sign, it sort of agitates the soil, agitates our world, and then you get a sort of clue as to what comes next. And today, then, Mercury in opposition to Uranus and starting to seed or tear up the ground, if you will, in Scorpio, brings us to the depths. The depths, Scorpio, issues like power, issues like survival, issues around evolution, the taboos that we have in our society or in our world, secrets, right? Secrets, clandestine affairs, the dark side. Isn't it interesting that Halloween falls in Scorpio, right? Halloween filled with all of the things of the dark, the fears that we have, and our celebration of those fears. We think about it as dressing our kids up in costumes and letting them go, rummage through the neighborhoods for candy. But in the real world, as Suzanne and others of you that practice paganism, that this is a time of year for us to go into the deep, right? To cross over into that dark place, to bring back the jewels, to bring back the gifts that are in the dark, to see things more clearly. Sometimes you have to go into those dark places. So I want you to remember during these next few weeks, while Mercury is spending time in Scorpio, that words, communication, all of your words have weight. It was interesting. Last night I was watching on Tuesday nights, and I don't know if you all know this, but on Tuesday evenings, Marianne Williamson does a talk. We talked about it, I think, earlier in the week, or maybe it was last week. I don't know. And in a church somewhere, I think in New York. And one of our listeners was actually going to try to go listen to her talk. Well, I heard it live stream last night. Londa, I bet you listened to it as well. And she was talking about relationships. She was talking about the idea of holy relationships. And I don't know if many of you are aware of the Course in Miracles, or if you understand the idea of holy relationships. But the Course in Miracle makes it very clear that most of us are engaged in what the Course would term special relationships. And special relationships have strings attached. They basically are the kind of relationship that says, I love you, and now I want you to be more like me. I want you to be, I start to put conditions upon the way in which I want you to show up in my world. And we think we fall in love, and we're at the pinnacle, and then everybody always says, then reality sets in, right? And then we realize, oh God, we can't live with one another, or, I don't like the fact he leaves his socks and his underwear everywhere around, and I'm always having to pick up after him, etc., right? We start to pick apart the person that we love, as we are trying to, in a special relationship, make them into something that we desire. And she said something really interesting. It's that we say we fall into love and then reality strikes, right? Or reality hits us. But in reality, the falling in love part was the truth, right? The falling in love part was the holy instant relationship, or the holy relationship, where we in each other's eyes can't see anything wrong. It's all about love. And it's all encompassing. And then we always seem to say that we fall out of love, or we fall into patterns and things and conditions and what have you. So the reality was the part where you fell in love. The unreality is the part where you begin to fall into the special relationship. And the point she was making in all of that is how words have weight, and how we speak to one another. In particular, women are often hurt by the actions that men take against them, but men are hurt by the words women use against them. I thought that was really fascinating. I'm still sitting with that one, because I guess the idea was that women can wield words as weapons, where men use strength or power as weapons. Interesting thought, ladies, right? How many times have, you resorted to words because everything else was failing you, right? So such interesting stuff. And now is that time where we can really look at, how do we talk to one another? It might be a time of talking less and observing more, right? Observing your behavior, other people's behaviors, what's going on around you, what's going on within you, instead of talking so much. I'm always fascinated when I do readings with people at how the conversation, sometimes people are so busy talking that I ended up doing a reading with someone, but I didn't do any of the talking. This person talked throughout the whole reading. And then we get to the end of the hour and I'm like, well, it's time to go. And I haven't gotten to say much, but, you said a lot. And sometimes that's what's needed. But right now, what's needed is quiet and silence and observing what's going on and being more aware around what's happening, right? Being quieter. And the energy today itself might be a little bit better served by your quiet, because the energy today is really kind of argumentative, right? With Mercury, the planet of communication, opposing Uranus, things can come out that you don't mean to say. Good morning, Kristen. Good morning, Londa. Good morning, everybody that's there that I haven't said hello to yet. Jan, exactly. Jan, good point. Actions speak louder than words. Yeah. So let your actions speak today, and make them good actions, right? Loving actions. Love is such an interesting word. are an interesting energy, because we always think that, love is something it really isn't. Love is all encompassing. And, even in the moments where we're failing ourselves miserably, or we're failing each other miserably, there is love there. You just have to remember that that's there. Um, Marianne said last night, in the midst of your fog that comes over you about the relationship that you're in, recall to yourself the instant that you fell in love. See the divine, the love in the other person. Remember that, and not what's happening, not the conflict, not the argument, not the things that have happened in between that point of love and now. Right? See them in love, see them through love, instead of seeing them through their human foibles. Right? It's really fascinating. So next time that you are in an argument, or today, if you are in an argument or getting ready to be in a conflict with someone, try to recall what it was like at the height of your relationship, because there was the truth. When you fell in love with that person, that was the truth of who they were. And that was the truth of who you were. And anything that's happened in between, unless it was adding to that love, is not of love. It puts a new spin, I think, on our relationships. And of course, today, it isn't necessarily about relationships, but the words that we use within the relationships, how we enter into conversation with one another. Venus is also in Scorpio, Jupiter also in Scorpio. So it really is the relationship dynamic that we've opened up to in Libra is being deepened by the transit of these planets now in Scorpio. And the sun goes to Scorpio next. So the focus really does come on the depth, comes into the depths. What's really going on in our relationships with everybody, not, and I think Marianne last night was really talking more about the one-on-one relationships with our spouses, our significant others, but it also is a dynamic that plays out in our friendships. It plays out in our partnerships, in our business partnerships even. So there's a lot of juiciness going on right now, if you're willing to take and dive into those depths. And then let's take a look at the gene keys, or the gates in human design, that Mercury is sitting at today and will be sitting at. And we see, of course, that he's now echoing Venus's transit over the fear gates of the spleen. And remember the spleen energy when we arranged it in Shadow, Gift, and Siddhi, that at the lowest expression, it was alarm, right? Alarm bells ringing. And then at the next level, it was intuition. And at the highest level, it was presence. What does it take to be wholly present in your relationships, in your interaction with anybody on any given day, in any given interaction, on the phone, in person, right? Being wholly present, what does that mean? It means listening. Often we're trying to talk and we're talking over one another. And while you're talking, you're not listening. You can't do both at the same time. And if the other person's talking and not listening, they're not really present either. So how many times in an interaction with someone are you present? I'm going to take a look at some comments because I see some really fun things coming through here. April says, great hurricane energy analogy compared to us. Absolutely. Alex, this whole year has been one major shock and blowout after another. I just keep my head down and bring it. Yeah, it's some people, Alex, I don't know when your birthday is, but, definitely some people have been really shaken up this year. Depends on, how your chart lays out, how old you are, etc. But yeah, some people are experiencing it as shock. And shock has a purpose, by the way. Remember when we were talking about the Earth being at this gate this week, the gate 51, the gate of shock? That shock serves a purpose. It is the opening salvo in initiating us to becoming more aligned with spirit. And let me see if I can move my coffee so I don't spill it in my computer. And let me get you a picture of this. This was yesterday's chart. The gate of shock sits on gate 51 right here on the will center or the heart center. And when it connects with gate 25 over here in the identity center, it becomes this channel of initiation. It's part of your mystical journey. It's the part where the lower energies in the body, and I don't mean that in a hierarchical way, I'm just saying, residing in the body, move up into the heart space. And the heart mind energy can express from here, from the heart, or if we allow it to, it keeps on moving up into the mind. And if it moves up into the mind, then it changes the dynamic of all of that energy. But these two centers, heart and identity, heart and soul, are separated in our human designs. And that happened somewhere around the dawning of the scientific age, perhaps, or maybe, I want to say probably the late 1400s, early 1500s, these things separated. And now our journey is to bring heart and soul back together, back to unity. So the channel, the gate of shock on the will center or the heart center is the opening act in our bringing those two centers back together. So shock takes on a new kind of view then, right? It has purpose. It has meaning. It has a reason for being. As what it is intending is for us to be awakened, to become more present to what's going on, to the interactions of the people around us, to our environment. I don't know about you guys. I live near forests. I live near the water. I don't know that you can walk through a forest or walk through a beach or near the ocean and not feel presence, right? If you can do that, then I don't know where your heart and mind is, right? It's like everything comes alive in the silence of a forest. Now, of course, there's still noise. There's birds and little animals scurrying around. On the beach, you have waves and you have the sound of rocks and all of that and birds. But there's something powerful in that quiet acceptance, presence of those things in nature. It's so powerful. Let's see, Londa, good morning. Kristen, Jan saying actions speak louder than words. I think I did say that. Good morning, Michelle Brooks. Mimi says, yes. I'm going to show this one because it's longer. But of course, it's not showing up in front of me. So yes, felt the energy building yesterday and realized the quietude is giving us a moment in the time to mourn the shocks and to grieve that which has been happening, a time to heal, construct a viable plan, and take action in the future. Absolutely, Mimi. That's perfect. Suzanne, put your love goggles on. Put your love goggles on. I love that. Good morning, Ginger. Jan says, anyone can say they love you. Words are cheap. Alex says, May 11th, Taurus, right? Taurus then. And Taurus, of course, Uranus is now in your sign. Whatever other planets that you have, Uranus. And I would bet there are more, dare I say, shocks to come. And let's hope that they are opening you up to being more and more and more who you're meant to be in the world. Ginger says her cross of penetration. Alex, what was May 11th? I've got a connection to that date too. I'm guessing it was Alex's birthday. And I love the sound of water. So relaxing, Jan says, yeah. And so that is one of the ways in which we can get through this time is to reconnect with nature. And to go to those places where you find peace. For some of you, it may be a park, it may be the forest, it may be the ocean, it may be a lake, wherever it is that you can find peace. That's where I suggest you go, right? Maybe it's the beauty of a room that you have in your house. Maybe you have a sacred altar that you can sit in front of and just be in the quiet, be in the solitude. Get away from the voices, to be present to yourself. And of course, always being present to a circumstance that's going on between you and another person, right? What is really going on? Like, I know some of you are struggling with different divorce or with breakups or with, problems in, your relationships with other family members. I mean, it's all a part of our lives, right? But what we can do then is from a place of presence, what is really going on? Can you see something better than what the argument is or what the superficial fight seems to be? Right. And I know some of these things are titanic struggles that are going on. I got you. I know. I know that there are some really big struggles going on, but you're not going to be able to find solutions from the same level of that struggle. You're going to have to find another way. You're going to have to rise to the next level of energy. And that is calling you to your presence, and or your intuition. Right? There's some clarity there that maybe you can get if you can remove yourself from the midst of the conflict or the argument or the fight, the struggle. If you can move back in your observation of what's going on, what can you see the love in that other person? I'm not saying this is easy, people. I know it's not. I'm the first one to admit that I fail miserably sometimes in that kind of situation when it's under pressure. You're under pressure, you're sitting there face to face with someone and you just want to wipe their face off of them. I've been there. And it takes a lot of presence, awareness, and quiet, really listening to what is that other person really saying. And sometimes the best path is to remove yourself from their presence, from their lack of presence for a time. You might just need to say, before I say something that I'm going to regret, I'm going to go take a walk. Right? That's the kind of presence that we have to be able to bring before we spew all kinds of icky stuff out at people. We have to remember the values that we have. If you value peace, but you live conflict, they're out of whack. There's no equilibrium there, right? So remember the gene key, the gate 50, this is where Mercury is sitting right now, at least for the next couple of days until he moves closer to Venus at gate 44. I want you to remember the shadow in this particular gate is about corruption. And it's not corruption like in politics or something like that we think of. It's corrupted and information. Like when something happens in a program that you download to your computer and the information is corrupted. And the corruption occurs on this planet because of the field of fear that is so palpable around us, right? That we're all still often very tied into the shadow, and the shadow is fear. And fear corrupts, misinforms us about what's going on, right? So if we continue to see things through the level of corruption or fear, we don't see clearly. We don't understand what's going on with our brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, husbands, wives, bosses, co-workers. We don't see it clearly. So we have to rise to the next level. The gift was equilibrium. It is only from a place of neutral observation that you can really look back and see what's going on. Can you see that person from that higher level and not get drawn into, more and more conflict? Right? If one of your values, if you value love, if you value peace and harmony, and you get drawn into conflict, then there's corruption occurring, right? A corruption in the reading of the information that you're getting, of the translation, let's say, of the information that's incoming. And of course, at the highest value, this would be harmony. Harmony. It's the gift in this. When we're living in alignment with those things that we value and not letting everyone else's upset become ours. Okay. Next, Mercury moves to the gate 28. And you might remember this gate too, because we talked about it with Venus. And it was purposelessness. Say that 10 times fast. purposelessness, and it is the gate where people often do whatever it takes just to feel alive, that there's a numbingness, right? That numbness that has occurred in their lives. And they'll go out sometimes and do things that are totally destructive just to feel, just to be in the energy of feeling like there's something going on. And purposelessness is that sort of aimless feeling of, I don't know what I'm here to do. I don't know where do I go next? Often purposelessness comes on the heels of a shock, right? Something happens. Think about people, who may have a shock as they get through this hurricane, and their house is in a shambles, or, possessions are gone, floated away, that their neighborhoods are, ruined. And out of that shock then comes this purposelessness. Like, what is the purpose of life if it can be destroyed so easily? Right? And the only way to move through purposelessness is to move into totality, where we embrace all that is, everything in every moment, as a part of our journey, as a part of our lives. And I know some of you sitting down there in Florida about to experience that go, yeah, you're up in Washington safe and sound. But we are all a collective, and what happens to one happens to us all. Across the nation, we feel anything that happens, right? So lots of things going on in our world, but it doesn't mean we have to get drawn into the drama of it. We can draw ourselves into presence. And what does that mean for us? And how can I bring myself into totality, which will be Mercury's next message? And that means I am in a spirit of acceptance. And this has happened. What next? What do I do next? Well, I begin to rebuild. I clean. I rearrange. I draw together with other community members, and I start to rebuild. Because life happens. Stuff happens. Shit happens. Right? And then the sun rises and a new day dawns, and we go on. But just because something like that shakes us up to our core, or something that, seemingly ruins our lives, doesn't mean that something good can't come out of it. Because something usually does come out of it. I think I shared yesterday how a lot of times you hear from people who've had cancer or who've survived a major heart attack at how their perspective of life has changed, and how they embrace life more fully. So the last thing that we want to do is get to the end of our lives with regrets. So live life in totality. Mercury's bringing that message to us. Now, I also alluded to the fact that Mercury is getting ready to slow down and go into retrograde. So let's talk a little bit about that, just to prepare you. It's not like it's happening tomorrow, but it sort of is going to happen soon. So you remember, a planet like Mercury that goes into shadow always does so about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time if it's Mercury. And that means Mercury will enter his shadow of the next retrograde phase on October 29th. So in about 3 weeks? So we have 3 weeks to prepare ourselves for this shadow period of Mercury, where things are often the wonkiest, right? And by the way, that also puts Mercury in retrograde during the election cycle. And Mercury in retrograde often can bring you people from your past back into the limelight. It can bring past experiences back into the now. So it's going to be an interesting election, I think, as Mercury will be in retrograde. And at that point in time, it should be back in Scorpio. It'll be retrograding on November 16th. And at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, it'll have moved out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius, turn retrograde on the 16th. Actually, so it'll be in the shadow during the election. It'll be before retrograde status. I don't know if that's comforting or not. I'll have to think about that. I think I'll pull a chart for the election day here soon. Remind me to do that if I forget. So it'll turn retrograde on the 16th at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, Who else changes direction that day? Venus. Venus turns retrograde on the very day that Mercury turns retrograde. I mean, Venus turns direct on the day that Mercury turns retrograde. Kind of interesting. I don't know how often those kinds of things happen, but I would bet it's not very often. And so it causes us to take notice, right? That, something happening in the same day, in the same time space, must have some form of meaning to it for us. And then retrograde, Mercury moves backwards to 27 Scorpio, and it will turn direct on December 6th at 27 Scorpio, and the whole of the shadow period ends on Christmas Eve, December 24th. So happy, happy, joy, joy, right? I'm good. I think that's a good idea, Mimi. I think I will do that. She's saying it would be a good idea to pull a chart for the midterms. And I think that will be really good. That should give us some. I'm almost afraid to do it. Isn't that funny? I feel that resistance in me. No, I don't want to know. But I do want to know. And I know you want to know. So tomorrow, maybe I will do that. I will pull a chart for the midterms and see what I can glean from that. At any rate, so Mercury moving into retrograde, spending a good deal of time in that retrograde in Sagittarius, which is a sign of truth and freedom. But it can also get to become is sometimes sometimes Sagittarius is that worst kind of believer. Oh, can I get away with saying this? That self-righteousness that can come out sometimes of this energy in Sagittarius. And I mean, that's a negative expression. On the high side, it is all in its power and it's living its truth. It's living in freedom and it is walking its talk and it is living from that place, right? Jupiter is the planet that rules Sagittarius. And so it often is a good sign, right? Puts us in a good place. And of course, in November, Jupiter's also going to be in Sagittarius. So there is this shift coming, and it does seem to coalesce right around those first couple of weeks of November, where Jupiter's changing signs. Mercury is retrograding in the sign that Jupiter's now in at that point in time. So I see that there could be a shift. But the last thing we want to do, if there is a shift and now the Democrats hold sway in the Senate and in the House, is to go back to that self-righteousness, right? We won. We have a mandate to make change and gloat, right? And begin causing more division. I mean, when are we going to learn that those kind of things are polarizing? And yeah, I do believe then, having just thought out all of these things that are going on, that there probably will be a major kind of shift that happens. But along with that shift has to be a change or a shift in attitude away from that self-righteousness to the conciliatory, to the let's work together, to the, we're in this together and let's see if we can't create some mending here instead of continually breaking us apart. I'm not sure that that's in the cards either, though, people. I'm not sure that we're ready for that yet. Jupiter, Sag, blunt truths, Mimi says, yeah. But that bluntness is on the negative end, right? Bluntness is like word swords, right? Word swords. And remember, right now we're learning about words have weight. And bluntness in and of itself isn't what the problem is. It's how you use the words and the attitude behind the words. And you can say things in many different ways, and you're going to be heard in just as many different ways, right? So, caution here about that self-righteousness, about bluntness. These are some of the more negative energies that can come up with Sagittarius. And it's going to be difficult, right? Because we are, how many of you might want retribution, revenge, right? Also energies that can come up in that Sagittarius energy. Should be interesting times. They're all interesting times, aren't they? So learn now to keep your mouth quiet, to keep your voice and your Oh, I'm just getting a news update that catastrophic historic Hurricane Michael coming ashore now with 145-mile-per-hour winds. Yikes. Bless all of you along that coast. Um, wow, 145 miles an hour. That's like upper category 4. Dang. At any rate, so we have a lot to work on within ourselves before some of these other changes happen. And do we want more of the same? Do we want more of the same? Do we want more of this stress? Do we want more of this polarization? Or do we really want peace? Are we going to finally align with our values? Right? So many people talk about, and I'm speaking now about the US, about the United States Constitution and putting people on the court that, are going to live the Constitution. Right? What were the values set out in the Constitution? Peace, liberty, freedom for all, equality. And are we in alignment with that? I don't know. I don't think so. Is it just peace, prosperity, equality for if you're a white male? Or is it peace, prosperity, equality for everyone? The pursuit of happiness for everyone? I don't know. Deep questions, right? Deep questions. And what we keep seeing is that really we're talking the same things. We just want to see them accomplished in a different way. That's really what it boils down to. Right? If I say, if I see a Republican over here talking and I see a Democrat over here talking, essentially what they're saying is that they want a certain thing. They're really saying they want the same thing. They just want to do it in a different way. That's workable. We can work with that. I don't think anybody's out there. I don't know. I don't want to get into that because but if we can look at it from that point of view, right, that we want the same things, we just want to go about them in a different way. And therein lies the conflict or the battle lines. But that's a solvable issue. It just requires both sides coming together, seeing that they value the same thing, but that for them, it's just a different path to get there. How can we bring it to that we're traveling on the same highway, but maybe just in different lanes? We're still going to all get where we want to go, but we may just in the slow lane do it a little slower, in the fast lane do it a little faster. And if we're in the middle lane, we're just going to go with the flow and do it in a way that supports everyone. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that the astrology is building us up to this crescendo. And in one of Marianne Williamson's talks a few weeks ago, or last week, I think it was, she said, that there's a point at which man will not be allowed to keep miscreating, right? That we can't keep miscreating. An article came out yesterday about global warming, and that if we didn't address the things that need to be addressed to change our climate, that within 10 years, we won't be able to go back. That nothing that we do will have an effect. That's pretty scary. It's pretty scary in light of the president relaxing regulations around ethanol and fuel and letting corporations spew more crap into our atmosphere, relaxing water standards, basically undermining everything to do with the environment. That's a pretty scary thought. The refusal to see what the handwriting on the wall is bringing to us. So we have to address the conflicts, but we've got to find the common ground first. When we find the common ground first, then we can, and the common ground is our common values, our common core values. So I get it. They value the economy and that these regulations make things more expensive. What's more expensive for a corporation ends up trickling down and being more expensive for you and me at the gas pumps, let's say. But then why can't we then shift our economy completely over to electricity or completely into a different way of using our our energy sources, resources. We can give these corporations time to retool, to rekey, to re-strategize, but we better do it fast. We better do it fast, and we do it when we come together, when we listen to one another, when we find, I can find this nugget in what you're saying that's true for me as well. Let's build from there, instead of just refusing blindly to see what it is they're saying. I think we always have this tendency I have this tendency myself. I do it all the time, to catastrophize, to awfulize things that happen. And in that, then it makes it very hard to see what the gift is in it. Because when I see that in only catastrophic terms, then I'm really saying that I don't trust in the benevolence of this universe, that there's a purpose and a plan and all of that. Jan says we had temperatures of nearly 90% here this summer, so unusual. 90%, 90 degrees, I bet. And I'm not sure where you live, Jan, but I think, don't you live in England? I don't know. Meant to say, okay, so let's look back at some of these. I could do with a little less interesting times, Colleen says. Yeah, I think all of us are a little bit shell-shocked. And Jan says, haha, I always seem to pick the dickheads. But you didn't see him as a dickhead in the beginning, right? What was it if you can go back to the moment that you fell in love with that person, what was it that you saw? Because you can't be that blind or that wrong. I'm not saying that what, people do in the relationship is right. They lose their way. Yeah, definitely. And, but what was it you saw? Go back to that point and then review what it is that you're seeing now. Where did that come from? How did it, and I'm not saying don't divorce and don't get away from people who are horrible and all of that type of thing. But first, you've got to come to a point of love. Is it more loving for you to stay in a challenging relationship? You got to look at your motives. You got to look deeper. Right. So it's like many times we get, and I remember as a young wife, my thoughts about how, I see the things in this person that I love. And I also see some, things that aren't necessarily, attractive, but I can change him. I can change that. I can live with this because I know that's going to change. And then you set about in a relationship then to start to focus on all those things that you don't like in that person and that you need to change in that person. And then you start losing sight of the love that you saw in that person. So they call those are conditional relationships. I'll love you if you don't leave your clothes laying around. I'll love you if once in a while you chip in and you help do the dishes. I'll love you if, right? And then the whole of the relationship becomes viewed through the lens of, you're not fulfilling my expectations. And not from, oh my God, I fell in so madly in love with you. And where did that go? It went into the ifs. If you do this, if you be that. So it's always about you. You personally, Jan, me personally, you personally, April, Alex, all of you, Mimi, it's all about you. And of Course in Miracles, it says there's only one of us here anyway, right? This one collective voice, and your part that you're playing in that collective voice, it's all about you. So you got to clean up you, and then your relationships can clear up. Or you see the path ahead as, I love you, but in all reality, I need to move on. But you can't do that from a space of anger and upset and blame and victimization. So much that we are learning about ourselves through these transiting planets, through the difficult energies. I don't I don't like seeing a lot of people suffering. I really don't. But what I do see about that is that suffering is a choice, and it is plain and simple. You choose to be the victim and you choose to suffer. And instead, you could rise up and you could say, okay, yeah, but this doesn't define me. This doesn't define who I am. Yeah, so what? This happened. Now I can rebuild. Now I can solidify my foundation. Now I can move forward. Often the pain that we're experiencing is in our not recognizing that we can move forward. So we've got a lot of transits that are tricky. And I got to tell you guys, I've looked ahead into 2019 and literally scared the bejeebs out of me when we get to this time next year. I don't think it's over. I think it's crescendoing. And that means that each of us now has to become very much more responsible for ourselves, right? The only way that we're going to be able to greet those energies next year is through our being at peace within us. Next December, craziness. Craziness is fully like 9 planets in Capricorn, a sign ruled by Saturn, and Pluto is in a conjunction with Saturn. Danger, danger, Will Robinson, right? To me, I looked at that and I was like, oh, shoo. So now I have a message that I need to bring to all of you, and that is, let's get clear. Let's find peace. Let's move through all of this dirty, dark, icky stuff that we don't want to deal with, so that when we get to next year, it is a catalyst for huge paradigm shifting love energy on the planet, and not for a devolution into horror. We hold the power. We do. We really do. We can shift right now if we wanted to. Yeah, Colleen says this is all too heavy to be over quickly. But it can be over. The moment we choose to be done with victimization, it really does lie within each of us. And I have to remind myself of this all the time. Right? I can choose. I choose in every moment what I say, how I say it. Can I stand back and choose from a place of love? You have votes. You have dollars. You have power to support the things that you find are in the light, that are in love energy, that are in peace, and support those. I want more of those, right? I want more of that. I want to live in that energy. And partly that means then you've got to stop looking over here at the dark. You have to be able to see it and embrace it and go, okay, but I'm over here now. This is my reality now. If we can do that, we can change the paradigm on the face of this planet. We can do it. And I know there's a lot of people waking up right now, and they're waking up to the horror of what this world looks like, the potential, for the downslide of our world. And yet there's so much that we can still do. But it begins with you as an individual. Suzanne says our souls were not meant for chaos. They were meant for love. And then Jan says, I agree. Never reply on others, then you won't be disappointed. No, I think you mean rely. Never rely on others, then you won't be. It's not. I don't think it's about reliance. I mean, partly, yeah. But in your relationships, use those relationships as a way to see yourself more clearly. If what you see is you over relying on someone else for love, for advice, for peace, for support, you got to look in yourself and go, okay, why am I not relying on me? What in me, what am I sensing in me that's missing? Because Chiron is will be in another couple months, back to Aries. And that was about self-reliance and self-acceptance and moving forward independently as an individual, but also as a part of the bigger picture. We've talked about this week even, right? Being a part and your individual self, but a part of a bigger tapestry. So anyway, A call, everything that is not in alignment with love is a call for more love. That's very clear. And I think sometimes we don't want to see it in that simplistic of a way, but it really is that simple. You just got to get your mind out of the way, because it's your mind that needs to be undone, because your heart knows the truth. So, all right. So let's see, what's anybody other comments out here? Jan, where do you live? I forgot. Just curious. So while I'm waiting for that answer, let me remind you all, Friday, Tam is going to be here with us. She is the artist behind the project, the astrology, or the energy almanac, that has astrology and numerology and art connected together to take us through 2019. And she will be on the show Friday morning to talk to us about that program. And I did put the link to the Kickstarter campaign on my Living Astrology Facebook page, so you can go there and check it out. She's got a really good, okay, England, okay, gotcha. She has a really good Kickstarter page, and a very informative video on the page. So go visit that. And if you feel so inclined to contribute, please do. The links and everything are there. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Jan said she's in England, so 90 degrees. Yeah, that would be like us here in Washington having consistent 90-degree temperatures. And I think Seattle may have. I did not here where I am, but Seattle may have had that experience as well. Anyway, I love all of you and I respect all of you. And I would love to hear from you, your thoughts, your struggles, what's going on with each of you. You can send emails to me if you have something private to livingastrology111@gmail.com. And I will see you again tomorrow morning. I can't believe it'll be Thursday already, right here at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. East Coast time. Bye for now, everybody. Take care. Have a great day. Love you too, Suzanne.